Okay, so now we're moving on to part two of the Evil Sunz truck, and this is where we're at right here. This is after the entire model got a good wash of Agrice Earthshade, and then I sprayed the entire model with Tester's Dull Coat. That was to seal in all the work we've done already and prevent it from being damaged in the future. So the next step is I'm actually going to go over and use a hairspray method here for paint chipping. So I'm going to use the airbrush and spray some hairspray on the armor. So this is the hairspray. It's just cheap Dollar Tree pump hairspray. I got this instead of the aerosol, so I don't have to worry about spraying into a cup or anything. I can just pour it right out. I've actually had this bottle for several years. It hasn't evaporated. It's still absolutely perfect. So that's all we need for that. So I'm just going to turn on the air compressor. Okay. Just pour directly into the airbrush. You don't need a lot. And we're just going to spray it right on the armor areas. Get a good thick coat, and the wheels. This is where we're going to be limiting the chipping to. Oh, let's put the hood scoop here. Good, and the bumper in all directions. Thick, heavy coat here on the armor sides. Down there, on the front bumper. So, something like the Kill Crush, I actually did the entire model. This one I'm just going to concentrate the hairspray on the areas I plan on doing the actual chipping on. Which is just the armor, oh, in the front of the, okay. So that's basically it. We just kind of spray some hairspray on here, on all the areas. And what's going to do is provide a very natural chipping effect when everything is said and done. So that's it for this step. So we're going to let this dry. It shouldn't take very long, only about a half hour or so. And then we'll go on to painting the base color. Okay, so we've completed the step. The hairspray is now completely cured up. And so here's where we're at. It's all ready to go. So at this point, basically, you could do any sort of paint job you wanted to on it. It doesn't have to be just Evil Sunz, obviously. The only difference is if I was doing Goth, I'd probably base coat it in lead belcher instead of the black metallic that I did. So now we're going to start base coating the red, and for that we're going to use corn red. It's a little darker, but of course we're going to highlight it up with the Mephiston red to return the brightness to it. And don't be afraid to just glop it up over the rivets or anything, because wherever it goes, you don't want it, it will just come off with the hairspray. So I'm going to do just the armor. That's all I'm going to do with the corn red. Looks like it's going to take 2 coats. Might have to thin it out a little bit too. I don't want to use the airbrush on this part because I don't want the paint to go where I don't want it. So I just want it on just the armor bits. And so I'm just going to go through. And so getting the paint around the rivets is going to be the hard part, I see. You see, I'm just using a cheap nylon brush as a base coat brush here. No need to use a good brush for this particular layer. And it's good enough shape where I can control where the paint's going. This nice thing about big models like this, using these cheap brushes when you're just doing base coats, is a good way not to avoid damage to your good brushes. So you can see it really starts to pop pretty good against this really dark model, the base of the model. And so when we do finally get to the chipping step, what's underneath the paint is really going to show up really nice, which is what I wanted in the first place. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to go ahead and base coat the armor here off camera, and then we'll go on to the next step after that. Okay, so now I've completed the base coat of the corn red, and you can see the areas I've hit. So very much right where I want it to be. So the next color, I'm going to start working on some yellow. And I'm going to use Iandin Dark Sun, which of course they don't make anymore because it's an old foundation color. But this is an excellent little base color for this stuff. So now what we're going to do is go through and pick out the yellow areas. So pretty much anything that's like a detail on here, I'm going to hit with the Iandin Dark Sun. Like that. Right here. This painting on camera thing's a lot harder than it looks. Uh-oh. There you go, some nice dags across the top, across the bumper. I'm also going to paint the fuel tank yellow, just because I always do tanks in yellow for some reason. So now I'm going to try to work on some flames here. So I'm going to get a nice tight point on the brush here. I'm just going to go something about like that. And I'm just going to go through here and fill them in. Just got a little bit too much paint on that time. Yeah, there's a couple flames on that. It's not too bad. And we'll do a big one here. The hood. Go around the rivets. Like that. Okay, and then we'll go through and we'll fill those in too. Okay, and of course, if you do get some areas you don't particularly like, you can just go back over them with the corn red. So that's not too bad, kind of like how that works out. So I think I'm going to go around here and get some, I don't really need a whole lot more, because I still want it mostly red. But I think I'm going to add some, let's see, let's do a check pattern here on the fender so I can show how that's done. Change the camera angle a little bit. Actually, there we go. So again, we need a very good point on the brush. Do one line. Split that in half, roughly. Yeah, a little curved. I'm trying to paint at a funny angle here. I know any of that made it on the camera. Just paint in the squares. So that's how we do a quick diag. Then I'm going to actually clean up some of that with the corn red, since it came out quite perfect. So we can just go around and do as much of this as we want. I don't want to cover up a whole lot more of the yellow, of the red with yellow, but I might go around and do some more. So yeah, but so far so good on that. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up the yellow details here. Okay, so now I've completed all the yellow work that I want to do. Got the tank, got some more flames over here, a bunch of diags over here, and I kind of fixed up these flames a little bit with some corn red. Added a third flame to the front. So I'm really happy how it's looking at the moment. So what I'm going to do now is give the red paint parts another wash of aggressor shade. The reason why I'm doing it this way is because I want the wash color both under the paint, and it's also going to shade the paint itself. So that's why I did the wash over the metal, and then I'm going to do another wash over just the paint. And then I'm going to highlight the paint with Mephiston red, and then we're going to do the chipping effects. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing washed and let it dry, and then we'll move on to the final color. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of other stuff while the wash is drying on the truck. Here we have the wash drying here on the truck. So what I'm going to do is start working on the wheels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with painting the tire parts black. Just some, I think this is Badger paint, I don't know, random black paint, just to cover up all the metal work. So I'm going to do in between here, try to avoid getting any black on the rims here that you've already rusted up. And these metal pieces are going to get painted actually in Balthasar gold. I've decided not to paint the rims of the rims of the wheels here any red, so I'm just going to leave them rusty like this, and then they'll get pigmented up on the final step. I'm just going to go here and paint all these metal pieces here, the wheels of Balthasar gold, just to give them a little bit different of a finish. You could actually even mix these things up and paint some of them lead belcher and some of them the tin bits, or whatever colors, metal colors you have lying around. But in my particular case, I prefer them Balthasar gold. And then I'll get the detail brush out here and I'll get the edges of them too. Oops, it's okay. So I'm just going around and get all the wheels painted black and gold, and then we'll move on to the last step for the wheels. Okay, so now the wheels have been completed and well, painted. They got the black on the tires and the Balthasar gold on the metal parts. So what we're going to do is actually wash the metal parts, and for that we're going to actually use the Formula P3 Armor Wash, because it has a significantly different look than any of the GW washes. It's kind of a dark gray. I said I like to call it kind of like a Payne's gray, more than a black or anything. So we're just going to go through here. Stick this on. We're going to go ahead and wash the and this thing it actually works quite a bit differently than GW washes. It pulls up a little bit more, which is fine because they're wheels, and so it gives quite a bit of a different effect on the metal than any of the GW washes. Why I kind of like to use it in different situations, just to mix up the look a little bit. Okay, so here we have the results of the wash on the truck, and it looks pretty good. But now it's time to do the layering up of the Mephiston red. And you could use a different red. You don't have to use this one. I mean, you could use the Evil Sunz Scarlet, or you could use the even with the Rohan red, or whatever they call it, whatever red you want. But this is what I happen to have, and it's what I used on the Shooter Boy, so that's the color it's getting. Okay, so what we're going to do is just go over all the panels with the Mephiston red. It's actually probably going to take a couple coats. And what I've learned is, I've actually started on this to practice, and what I've learned is that I was going to just like layer around the rivets, and it is just way too time consuming to try and layer around the rivets. So I'm just going to paint the rivets, and what I'm going to do then is go over and pin wash the rivets. with aggressive shade. So what I want to do when it gets to the flame itself, I want to go very close to the edge. I want to leave a small thin line of the corn red showing just around the edges of the yellow. Let me tell you, this is very hard to do on camera. It actually gives a very nice effect when you do that. There you go, exactly the way I wanted it. And then just go through tops of the rivets and then around the rivets. So that you can either try and layer up around the rivets, or you can just paint right up to them and then go back over and pin wash them to get the shading around the rivets, because that's what I really do want. I want shading around the rivets. And it may look like I'm painting kind of funny, and it is just because of the angle I'm at and trying to get this on camera. As I said, really isn't that easy to do. And it's probably, again, going to take 2 layers, 2 coats of Mephiston red to get the job done, just like I did with the corn red. Because you do want it nice and bright. And there's not going to be a wash or anything over the top of the Mephiston red. That is going to be your final color. So you want it both brilliant and solid. So you can see that line of corn red around the yellow, and it really makes it stand out, I think. Turns out really nicely. I said it is going to require a second coat though. And we're just going to do the same thing here on the other side. Just like that. Whew, that is not easy to do on camera here. I don't even know if you got to see that or not. And I'm just going to go over and paint everything red. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of put this on hold for now, because I've actually done quite a bit of it already. I said I was doing some practicing on here before I started filming, just to get the looks I wanted. And so we got over here is on this side. I actually gone over and finished all the red and done all the pin washing. And what we're going to do on the yellow is we're going to give all the yellows a highlight of the sunburst yellow. So any bright color for yellow will work. And again, this is what I have. And it's what I used on the other guys. So what I'm going to do, like on these diags right here, I'll go through and just highlight the middle of each one with the sunburst yellow. And again, the yellow should be pretty thin, so you probably have to get a couple coats on here to really get a good highlight on here, which is fine, because then you want to do is do a thin coat on up to the edge, and then do another coat that's closer in the middle, and just get it brighter and brighter yellow as you get away from the edges. Works for me. Very and same with the middle of the flames here. And just I do want to kind of pull the paint to thin it out a little bit as I work up, so it's not just one consistent color, but kind of get some variation in the yellow itself. I can pull and push the paint around. And then we have something like that happen. Okay, disaster avoided. So now we got the nice shadow around the flame caused from the corn red, and then we got a highlight in the flame of the brighter yellow. You could add some oranges in there if you really wanted to, but I don't really see the need. Red and yellow works fine by itself. So now what I'm going to do is, so that's how the technique is going to go, and then I said then I'm going to go over and pin wash around the rivets with Agra's Earthshade. That's what I did over here. You can really see how it came out, which is absolutely perfect. So I'm going to go around and finish the base coat on here. You could do a second highlight of something brighter if you wanted to, but I'm just going to do, once this red is all done, I'm going to go over and do an edge highlight of Troll Slayer Orange and some other edge highlights on here. So it's going to take me a while to finish up this truck. So I think we're probably going to call part 2 done here. And then I'll finish this off camera, then we'll come back, do some final highlights and some final work on the truck body itself. So thanks for watching.